Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
We are an inclusive faith community
seeking to live out the loving, just, and generous way of Jesus.
We are participants in a long tradition
that's less concerned with doctrines and dogma that demand total agreement,
but a life to be lived, enjoyed, and given away to others.
What unites us is a growing awareness that life is precious.
that we are made by love in order to love.
This community is comprised of and affirms the entire human family,
regardless of race, age, creed,
physical abilities, marital or economic status,
gender identity, or sexual orientation.
So, if you're curious and have come to see,
if you are tired and have come to rest,
If you are grateful and have come to share,
if you are wounded and have come to heal,
if you're joyful and have come to celebrate,
If you are uprooted and have come to belong,
welcome home.
Welcome home.
welcome home.
welcome home.
I need a refill. I need a new mind. I need to set my prejudice aside. I need a new soul. I need a heartbreak. I need to see the tragedies abate. We are bound to one another. We can be human only together. Only together. I need a reform. I need a new mind. I need to set my prejudice aside. I need a new soul. I need a heartbreak. I need to see the tragedies abate. We are bound to one another. We can be human only together. Only together. We are bound to one another. We can be human only together. Only together. I need a reform. I need a reform. Let justice flow like a river, like a river. Righteousness like a stream, like a stream. Let justice flow like a river, like a river. Righteousness like a stream, like a stream. Let justice flow like a river, like a river. Righteousness like a stream, like a stream. We are bound to one another. We can be human only together. Only together. We are bound to one another. We can be human only together. Only together. I need a reform.
so unusual, it's frightening. You see right through the mess inside me, but you grab my heart with the truth, the kind of love that's bulletproof. And I don't need to keep on hurting. I'm fully known and loved by you. You wanna go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's hard truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. I'm fully known and loved by you. It's so like you to keep assuming. It's so like me to go straight. Ooh, but you grab my heart with your truth, the kind of love that's bulletproof. And I don't need to keep on hurting. I'm fully known and loved by you. You wanna go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's hard truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. I'm fully known and loved by you. How real, how wide, how rich, how high is your heart? No, I cannot find the reasons why you give me so much. How real, how wide, how rich, how high is your heart? No, I cannot find the reasons why you give me so much. I'm fully known and loved by you. You wanna go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's hard truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. Fully known and loved by you. It's so unusual, it's frightening. I'm fully known and loved by you.
Hey, good morning, friends. Well, whether you're aware or not, today is a special day in the history of Crosspointe because this week Crosspointe turned 25 years old. So essentially what that means is that we're now old enough to run for office in U.S. Congress. We no longer have to pay the young adult surcharge when we rent a car, and that this is the final year we can be on our parents' health insurance plan before getting kicked off on our own. So here's to being 25. Now, leading up to this day, I've never really been sure whether it's a 25th birthday or it's a 25th anniversary, and so I've kind of been using those terms interchangeably, but regardless, it's a moment worth celebrating. And so I want us to do that today. But before I get to how we're going to celebrate as a church community, I want to take some time to help us all walk through how we got here. We say it all the time whenever we talk about the Bible, just how much context matters. But context matters for everything, right? I mean, and understanding our context and our collective history matters. And it's worth revisiting in moments like this because it helps us all understand the journey that brought us here and the story we're all a part of, regardless at which point any of us individually join the story. So, with that in mind, let me walk you through a brief overview. 25 years ago, 3 families came together in the Midwest with a similar vision. They wanted to start a church that anyone could feel welcome in. A church for people that previously didn't think that they could belong to a church for whatever reason. And so these 3 families packed up their lives, left friends and family, and moved to Cary, North Carolina. Because it was a fast-growing community in the mid-90s, and statistics showed that there weren't very many churches for the population size at the time. They didn't know anyone here in the area. They didn't have a church denomination or another church launching them into existence. They didn't have any outside funding sources. They just picked up and moved, found side hustles, and started inviting people to a new church that was going to start up. A local movie theater ended up allowing them to use space on Sunday mornings, and so they sent out postcards to all their surrounding zip codes. And then on October 19th, 1997, they opened their doors for the first time. And they were blown away when 327 kids, students, and adults showed up. Well, over the next few years, Crosspointe continued to grow. And then in the early 2000s, Crosspointe started looking for a permanent location and eventually landed on an agreement to purchase 40 acres of land here in northwest Cary. And so people sacrificed and gave generously, and the remaining financial gap was filled with a loan that the church voted to take on. And the reality was it was way more land than they needed at the time, but they believed that a bigger story was unfolding. And then on November 16th, 2003, Crosspointe held its first service on campus at this particular location here in Cary. It wasn't long after that, the first senior pastor, Steve Larson, came to two decisions. One, that he was more wired to be an entrepreneur that helped churches get started rather than leading a growing church, and that two, he was needed back at their family business in Michigan to help his dad run things. Steve used his experience from Crosspointe and has gone on to serve as a consultant to help dozens and dozens of new churches start across the country. Well, it was about 18 years ago that I got a phone call from the team here at Crosspointe while I was serving in a church in Indianapolis. And they asked if I'd consider interviewing for their lead pastor position. And after a fairly wild series of events, which is a whole other story entirely, I ended up accepting the position here, and my family and I moved to Cary in June of 2005. Well, over the next several years, Crosspointe continued to grow steadily and rapidly. At one time, we were recognized as even one of the fastest growing churches in the country. On April 4th, 2010, Crosspointe had its largest gathering for one service when over 3,500 people gathered for Easter at Booth Amphitheater. Over the next few years, eventually events like Crosspointe Christmas services would bring together over 5,000 people at one time. And so it just seemed at the time that we were cruising along. By all the standard contemporary evangelical church metrics, we were incredibly successful. Yet, a few major seismic shifts were starting to happen. They didn't happen overnight. They were shifts that had been brewing inside many of us who had been leading for years. But they manifested at a few critical points. One, since we were growing so quickly, the understood typical next step for a church like ours was, well, of course we need to build a bigger church building for ourselves. So we invested in some great architects who we worked with for about a year, and they designed a beautiful church campus for us. It looked like an outdoor shopping mall. It was stunning, but there was this moment when a handful of us were sitting around together looking at these beautiful designs, and it just didn't sit right. And someone articulated, you know what? If we build this thing, I think we might actually lose the heart of who we are. And there was this immediate sense of collective agreement. We just knew that that would somehow take us down a road that didn't align with our hearts and the hearts of Crosspointe, and we would end up being forced into being something we really didn't want to be. And that conversation started a major shift in our thinking. So we scrapped all of it, all the work, all the investment, all of it, and we started over. And I wish I could say immediately that the next step became clear, but it didn't. It was a long period of waiting and wrestling and trying to explore different options, but all of them felt like settling. Eventually, though, what started to resonate was, we have all this land, and we have a great building and a great parking lot, but most of it sits empty every other day of the week besides Sunday morning, and that just seems like a waste. So what if we could partner with another organization that could serve the community so that both of us could do more together than we could just do on our own? And after what seemed like a random conversation over lunch, we became aware that the YMCA was looking for land in our area, but was having a difficult time finding any. So we started having a conversation. What if we didn't actually build a bigger church building for ourselves at Crosspointe, but we built a YMCA for the city instead? What if we built it for everyone? We approached their leadership and said, okay, what if Crosspointe, we'll raise the money, we'll design and build you a new YMCA for the city, and then in turn, we'll lease it to you to run and operate. Now, this was something that hadn't been done before. There was no map to follow, but we felt like it was a story that was much more aligned with our heart and values and the type of presence we wanted our community to have in the city, where we asked the question, what does our city need and how can we help? You see, we used to drive by the Harris Teeter parking lot, which is just around the corner from our campus here, and there would be 100+ kids just hanging out in the grocery store parking lot after school because there was nowhere else nearby for them to go. We wanted to be a part of changing that. But it wasn't smooth sailing. We negotiated terms for over a year with the Y, and the negotiations fell completely apart at least 3 different times. But there was this continued sense of, okay, this is how all the best kinds of stories go. We have to keep fighting because there's a good story in here somewhere. Well, eventually we came to terms, and then we had to start going through all the necessary hoops with the town of Cary. But after our final presentation, I want you to hear how the town council responded about the members of Crosspointe.
Furthermore, we believe that this tells a much better story of community organizations finding a way, working together, rather than solely being focused on their own mission. Obviously, I believe this proposed rezoning is an excellent use of the property for many of the reasons I've already stated. And if the rezoning is approved, we believe the uses envisioned for the property will be a welcomed addition to the area. And so we ask you for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins.
I don't have a question. I just want to say how exciting this is. We talk to citizens all the time about the value of giving back to our community and helping to build it. And I just look at this as the most innovative and exciting collaborative effort that we have seen. I mean, I just think it's very, very exciting. And I'm just so impressed. I met with the church several weeks ago to hear about it. And, you know, I left there just thinking that the members of this church just get it. I mean, they get the idea of giving back and ministering to our community in the most relevant way possible. So I'm very excited about this initiative. And we used to always throw around the word remarkable. We wanted our community to be remarkable. And I think this is a remarkable collaboration. I'm excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm excited too.
Do you hear what the council member said? The members of this church just get it when it comes to giving back and ministering to our community in the most relevant of ways. Again, these were city public officials declaring this about a faith community, which is incredibly rare, but it was important to us that when people thought of Crosspointe Church, that they first thought of a community that loved and served people. That was our reputation in the city. And we believed this strategy lined up with that. And so that kicked off an intense 3-year period. For 2 years, hundreds of people and families sacrificed and gave generously to make this project a reality. We voted to borrow their remaining amount of money and started construction. Construction on campus was chaotic, to say the least, because we weren't building on a different property in a different location. The very site we met at every Sunday was now a construction zone. And so for about 1.5 years, we all parked at a nearby high school parking lot and shuttled people over for service on Sunday mornings. And it was hard and messy and exhausting in many ways, but it was also beautiful and daring and had this weight and significance to it that we were a part of. We tried to be really intentional and tell a story with every part of the construction of the building, even repurposing all the trees that we had to take down on the property that ended up being the wood that you see throughout the campus today. And then on October 4th, 2017, the doors of the YMCA officially opened. Crosspointe was the owner of the entire campus, and the YMCA leased the building from us. However, another seismic shift was taking place during those years of construction. Many of us as leaders were growing up and maturing and waking up to some things that put us in direct conflict with how we as Crosspointe had gone about things for years. You see, one of the reasons we had grown so much into this large contemporary church with these evangelical roots was that we had taken the position to be ambiguous on a few critical issues that seemed to divide people culturally. And in just speaking for myself, by nature, I tend to want to be a uniter. Someone who's bringing people together. And the role I'd ended up serving since childhood tended to be, I'm the one who holds people together, whether it was my family or friends or teens, and now even the church. And so I became really good at being ambiguous on some key issues, where people could attend Crosspointe week after week, and no matter where you stood on some of these critical cultural issues, you could listen to what I said, and it was just vague enough where you could interpret it how you wanted to interpret it and feel like, you know what, I can line up with that. One of the things we even used to say was, we don't take hard stances on issues because when you take a stand, you stop walking with people, and we want to walk with people. And again, the intention there was well-meaning, but we wanted to bring people together. But internally with myself and some other leaders, there was this seismic shift happening for many years where that no longer felt honest. It no longer resonated with how we understood Jesus. And one day, our teaching pastor, Steve, was recapping a conversation to me that he had with his friend who's a part of the LGBTQ community. And this friend had asked about our church's position on that community. And Steve shared our public position of how we as a church try to keep everyone at the table, how we try to provide space for people's minds slowly to be changed by learning to sit and do life with people who share different perspectives, how we're trying to help people listen to each other and have compassion on one another. And in response, his friend articulated, you know what? That sounds nice and all, but here's the thing. Whenever you choose to stay in the middle or just sit on the fence on an issue of justice and equality, the only voices that benefit are the oppressive ones. Because essentially what you're doing is you're asking a vulnerable target group to minister to their oppressors by letting the oppressor set the terms and the timetable. And as Steve unpacked his friend's response, in that moment, something permanently shifted inside many of us. His friend was right. I mean, this value of unity we claim to be fighting for was really only the veneer of unity. The Jesus we knew stood with the oppressed and the marginalized, not with religious gatekeepers. Jesus didn't try to appease both groups. He took sides. And I know my sitting on the fence had hurt people, and it had piled onto hurt that people of faith had participated in causing for far too long. But as someone who desperately wanted to hold people together, I knew this would blow up things. It would have major cost. Pastors from other churches took conversations that we had had about our honest wrestlings, and they called our lender, which was a faith-based lender, and pressured them to call our loan for breach of some doctrinal stances that they had. I was scared. And out of fear, I still dragged my feet for a while after this conversation because frankly, I wanted it to be easier. I wanted it to be convenient. And to say it plainly, my white American heterosexual Christian self hadn't ever really had to realize the pain and cost of actually confronting injustice. But eventually, the heart of Crosspointe broke through. One of our values that shapes us today goes like this. It says, we're a faith community who doesn't align with partisan politics, but will actively speak out and work against injustices and systems that oppress people and creation. But back in 2014, while that was real to us, we were just figuring out what it looked and sounded like publicly. And this also happened to be the 18 months leading up to the national election cycle in 2016, which was a crazy time, right? Almost on the regular, there was extremely harmful rhetoric, racist rhetoric that demeaned, hurt, and fueled violence against marginalized groups of people that was coming from people in power or people trying to gain power. And that rhetoric was being cloaked in this idea of being Christian or biblical values. And so we felt a responsibility to speak out against it. And we did. And people became upset. In their minds, we were now getting political. But things had shifted for us. Loving people requires that we engage in politics because politics deals with the practicalities of how we all do life together. We can't ignore that. Can't ignore how we actually go about treating one another in day-to-day life. And then, while we were at it, over the next several months, we ended up ripping the Band-Aid off and getting very clear on issues of equality and inclusion of the LGBTQ community, confronting particular toxic religious ideas like fiery eternal torment for people that don't agree with certain religious ideas. Because these ideas didn't align with Jesus, and they were used to create fear and control in people. We said the things into a microphone that tradition told us not to say, but they were honest, and they were necessary if there was any hope in moving forward for our core group of leaders. And so, in doing so, not surprisingly, we upset a lot of people. And thousands ended up leaving our church community. And it was gut-wrenching for everyone involved. And honestly, there's still a fair amount of trauma left over from those days for all of us as leaders and our families, and for some of you who lived through that. Things that were said to us and about us, things our spouses and our kids endured, treasured relationships that were blown up and left in shambles. Yet, looking back, I have to take responsibility for what I can take responsibility for. And the thing is, it was a dramatic shift for a lot of people who had gone to Crosspointe for years. They were used to things being ambiguous. And they were used to that because that's how I led it. And that's on me. So it makes sense that when things were no longer ambiguous, for some people, they were angry and hurt. What they had known and grown comfortable with had changed. They were experiencing their own kind of grief. They had invested themselves into this community at least somewhat based on how I presented things to be, and that rug got pulled out from underneath them. And so again, their anger and their disappointment makes sense in a lot of ways. And I'm certain there are some things, if we as leaders had a do-over on, we'd all do differently, of course. It was new territory for us too. What do you say and not say into a microphone? What do you post and not post on social media when you're a pastor? And who makes the rules up on how that goes anyway? But we were growing up. We were maturing, individuals and as a church community. We were beginning to understand much better what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. And so we had to figure out how to align every part of what we said and did with that. But the thing is, I think that's the point. We're supposed to be growing, changing, learning, maturing as we grow older. And that's true, again, of us as individuals and true of us collectively as Crosspointe. Yet, that ran in direct opposition to a narrative that many of us who grew up around faith were handed. That being faithful means not changing, right? It means still seeing God in the Bible and faith through the same filter we were presented as children. And so those conflicting narratives understandably crashed into one another. And it was hard. But I believe it was also necessary to get us to move forward in a much healthier, loving way. However, practically speaking, when thousands left the church, we had to figure out how to try and survive. So we made drastic cuts, we laid people off, those leaders that remained took significant pay cuts, and we chose to pivot on our relationship with the YMCA. We knew getting out of debt was going to be critical to survival, so we approached the YMCA with another proposal. What if we sold the buildings and the campus to the YMCA? And we work out an arrangement where we can still meet on Sundays, where we can meet rent-free for a long period of time, contribute to some common area maintenance along the way, and then reevaluate the relationship as we go. And so in January of 2020, we sold the campus to the YMCA and got the church debt-free, having no idea that the pandemic would hit 2 months later and that we would be forced to be exclusively online for the next 2 years. The timing could not have been better for us, yet being forced to go online opened up our connection to people literally across the world who didn't know a church community like Crosspointe existed. And the YMCA has continued to be a fantastic partner with us in so many different ways. We love working with them and are so grateful for the role we got to play to launch their presence here in Northwest Cary and the role we get to serve with them now. And what we dreamed, hoped, and sacrificed for in the beginning is happening. Every day of the week, over 1,000 people from all walks of life and all types of backgrounds walk through the door of the YMCA. The parking lot is filled every single day of the week. And just a couple weeks ago, I learned that our YMCA now serves more kids and students than any YMCA in the country. So friends, any way you slice it, it's just a good story. But most importantly, many of you that are here today, you stayed. You grew and changed with us. You encouraged, you took your own hits for staying, and you still stayed. And you offered grace. You continued showing up, contributing financially, being even more generous, and trusting that God was weaving a good story, a better story. And you chose to move forward with us to where we collectively believed that the Spirit of God was leading us, rather than retreating to what was more comfortable, safer, and simpler in the past. You stayed. You didn't walk away. You leaned in. And that, friends, has made all the difference in the world. And it's allowed Crosspointe to survive and for new people to join the story today. And 25 years later, here we are with a few scars that tell a story of where we've been, where we've left the ideas of American evangelicalism behind, but discovered a much clearer picture of Jesus' actual teachings and what it means to love people. And I'm convinced we're healthier than we've ever been, and I've never been prouder to be a part of this community. So the question became, leading up to today, well, how do we celebrate 25 years? Now, there are certainly times to throw a party, but this just didn't feel like one of those moments for us. So instead, we decided, let's celebrate by giving money away to organizations that we believe in, that we want to encourage, that we want to lift up, and that align with our values. And let's not just give a little bit of money, but let's sacrifice and let's give generously and let's give away a lot of money, like $100,000, and see what happens. And so that's what we did. We got together as leaders and we brainstormed a ton of different organizations, and then we started narrowing down the list that felt most appropriate for this particular moment in time, and we started vetting them and having conversations and doing a lot of listening to what they were trying and hoping to do. And so what I'd like to do over the next several minutes is introduce you to each of them and let you hear a message of appreciation from them. Now, here's one tension that I want to acknowledge up front, that I acknowledge with each of them. A part of me loved the idea of walking into their organizations with a camera, surprising them with a big check, and filming their reaction so that all of us got to enjoy that moment. I don't know about you, but I love those moments when I get to see them on TV and I get really inspired. And so part of me definitely wanted to do that. And not only for the enjoyment part, but frankly, as a nonprofit organization ourselves that operates 100% off of donations, every nonprofit fundraiser will tell you that it makes a lot of strategic sense to do that because it inspires people to want to contribute more to your own organization. But here's the thing. One, I think that recording that moment can put a lot of weird pressure on the moment itself. I compare it a bit to like when you receive a gift on Christmas or your birthday and you feel pressured to react in a certain way that makes the giver feel good. And so it can become about managing the other person's emotions rather than being free to be authentic with your own. And secondly, we especially didn't want to do that to groups of people that historically Christians and churches have done harm to, and put them in a spot where they could feel like that they had to perform for our benefit. And three, I'm just choosing to trust that you, Crosspointe, that you get it. That you don't need a manufactured scene to emotionally pull you to contribute financially to what we're all doing here together. I'm just trusting that you get it for all the reasons. Yet still, they wanted to say thank you, and I wanted you to get to hear from them. So with that, we chose 5 organizations to distribute the $100,000 among. The first is Rise Against Hunger. 2 weeks ago, we partnered with Rise Against Hunger here on Sunday morning, and together, we, kids, students, and adults alike, all packed on Sunday morning over 70,000 nutritious meals that are being shipped to children and adults in Haiti and the DR. Crosspointe paid for all the meals, supplies, and associated shipping costs to pack those 70,000 meals, and that ended up being $24,000. We showed a video of that event last week. It's also on our Facebook page. You can find it on YouTube if you didn't see it as well. And so I'm not going to recap that any further, but that's where the first $24,000 went. Secondly, we gave $20,000 to the LGBT Center of Raleigh. Now, this organization, for a variety of reasons, was a no-brainer for us. And as I've shared already, is a part of our story. Not only do we believe in what they're doing, but it's important that we build trust as a community that they can count on to have their backs. We had inspiring conversations with their new executive director and program director about the difference the center is making in the lives of our LGBTQ siblings, their dreams, and then how we can partner with them as a church community in several ways moving forward into the future. One of the things they mentioned in our meeting is that they're not looking for allies, but they need accomplices, because accomplices don't just stand by, they get involved. They're willing to be a part of the hard work that's necessary. And so we're honored to be an accomplice to what they've got going on. So let me introduce you to Patricia.
Hello, my name is Patricia Corbett, and I'm the new Executive Director of the LGBT Center of Raleigh. On behalf of the Center's Board of Directors, myself, and staff, I'd like to thank Crosspointe Church for your generous donation of $20,000 to our programs. The LGBT Center of Raleigh serves a major function in our area. It not only serves LGBTQ youth and adults in Raleigh, but also Wake County and surrounding counties. As a result, we have youth who are willing to travel almost an hour to attend our programs. As a result of your generous donation, this will allow us to expand our reach to those youth. Instead of us having one Aspire leadership camp, we will now have 4. As a result of your donation, we already know how we need to expand our youth programming, and you're helping us to do it. So thank you so much again, Crosspointe Church, for providing such a generous donation and showing your support for the LGBTQ+ community. We appreciate you and we love you.
Third, we gave another $20,000 to Nourish Adolescent Wellness and Apex. Obviously, one of the things that we care deeply about at Crosspointe is good mental health care and making that more accessible. And as we've talked about the past couple of years, there's an ever-increasing need for that for children, students, and young adults. And the pandemic only threw gasoline on all of that. So Nourish tries to fill that gap in so many beautiful ways. When you go to their website, on their front page, they have stickers that clearly state Black Lives Matter, protect trans kids, and that they're affirming of the LGBTQ+ community. They care deeply about kids on the spectrum, and their values lined up so much with Crosspointe's heart for young people and great accessible mental health. And we were just blown away by our conversation with the founders and would love for you to get to hear from one of them now.
Jonathan and the amazing team over at Crosspointe Church. My name is Cassie Brino. I am a co-founder and co-owner of Nourish Adolescent Wellness and Apex, together with my business partner, Sarah Schaefer. And we have been open about 2 years, almost to the day, 2 years. We are a small private practice that offers services for adolescents, mental health care and physical health care for adolescents. We see patients aged 9 or 10 to about 26 years old. And like I said, we've been open about 2 years. We have put our blood, sweat, and tears into this practice to ensure that these patients are receiving the best care that they can receive. We basically opened with the idea that this type of environment didn't exist, right, for adolescents and young adults to be able to go into a medical practice and tell all of their darkest secrets and ask all of the questions that needed to be asked, including things that had to do with mental health, things that had to do with medical issues, basically anything under the sun, right? And we knew this space didn't exist. We put a lot of effort into looking into the area that we live in and seeing kind of what services existed already. And we wanted to prioritize mental health, but also be able to offer services like physical exams, lab work, anything that maybe came up medically in that same space, and just being able to kind of shift the gears from pediatrics to adult medicine and sort of serve in that little gap between those years, because sometimes it doesn't feel so great to go to the pediatrician's office that you've been seeing since you were in diapers and talk about things that are more important to you as an older adolescent or a young adult. So yeah, we wanted to create that space, and Nourish has so far done that for us and for the community. We've been able to see lots and lots of amazing kids and their families, and it has just been growing and growing, and it's again, blood, sweat, and tears. Sarah and I put our heart and souls into this place, and it's just been a struggle financially and kind of like emotionally, because we do want the absolute best for these patients. So it's with overwhelming joy and excitement that I received word from Jonathan that you and your amazing members of this congregation will be allocating some funds, a pretty substantial amount of funds, to Nourish in order to help us receive some of the training that we were wanting, and kind of just like had this conversation about what our hopes and dreams are. And so far, it sounds like we're going to be able to fulfill some of those dreams thanks to all of you. One of the biggest things that we're looking forward to with this money and this funding is being able to offer standardized testing for autism, which is a huge resource this community needs and is lacking. Our priority for testing for autism has been the past couple of months, and the need for it is significant. So I'm so excited. 2 of our providers at Nourish, myself included, are going to be able to do some training now and then offer the standardized testing. So I'm so excited. And then outside of that, this money will let us function as a debt-free independent practice, which is a huge blessing to us and just the best thing we could ever hope for as a small practice. Being debt-free will also allow us to possibly shift focus and offer more financial services to adolescents and young adults, thinking of the idea that like financial independence is kind of hard when you're learning how to be on your own, finally away from your parents. And we do have a couple of awesome therapists that work with us. So we're hoping that we can create a little like bubble of financial aid for some of the patients that maybe can't afford the services that we typically collect a copay for, collect cash pay services. And so I think hopefully this will help offer some of these services to patients that can't otherwise afford it. So I'm so excited. That's always been my dream, is to offer these services free of charge, really, but we all know it takes a little bit more than a big heart to continue owning a practice and offering medical and mental health services to our community. So this is a huge blessing to us. Again, it's so appreciated, and I can't tell you how excited I was, how I did a million little dances in my seat, got up and danced. I told Jonathan this. It's amazing. We couldn't have done any of this. We can't accept this without all of your tiny little bits of contributions, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of this. This is going to make serving this community a game changer. So thank you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Have the best holiday season, and we know we will now, so thank you so much.
Fourth, we gave another $20,000 to the White Oak Foundation. For the last several years, we've worked closely and partnered with the White Oak Foundation in a variety of ways. They have been working in our community for decades, constantly listening to the needs of local citizens and dreaming in big ways about how to address those needs. They offer a food pantry run by volunteers twice a week, every week of the year. They operate a community resource center where they offer crisis counseling as well as doctor and dental visits. They offer scholarships to local students who would not otherwise be able to attend college. And they've recently become a permanent Meals on Wheels location by running the Friendship Cafe, where seniors can come, eat a meal, engage in activities with other seniors, and take a meal home for later. White Oak and their leadership epitomize love in action, and many couldn't make it without the day-to-day care that they offer. And so please enjoy this message from Pastor Tyner.
We can all work together. We can do it better when we all work together. I want to thank you all, Crosspointe, for all that you do, all the support that you give. You've been our partner ever since. At least 5 years. I believe you've been our partner. And the reason we can do the kinds of things we do is because of your help and your prayers. I certainly want to say thank you for partnering with us, because we're about the total person. We're about trying to do what we can to help mankind. Your contribution to us, your coming and volunteering with us, mean all the world to us, because then we know that we have partners and we can do more working together than we can separate. We know that we are expanding our senior program. Our senior program will be expanded to every day of the week. Did you hear me? Every day of the week, we'll be able to bring senior citizens to our cafe, and we're going to feed them. We're going to have a program dedicated just for them every single day. And if you know of any seniors that's at home, find themselves lonely, find themselves stressed all out because of that loneliness, please let us know. We'll be glad to have them come and join us in our senior program. So your contribution is going to help us to expand that program. Expand it to the point where we can go by and pick up seniors and bring them to this place. Not only that we know that everybody have crisis. We've had them. We thank God that we are now where we are. But look at where we've come from. All of us have had down moments in our lives. And our crisis ministry help those who are having downtime in their lives. In other words, they need a second chance. They need a boost. And our program here at White Oak provides that boost for them. Our program is unique because we're able to do perhaps what others are not able to do, and we're able to get information perhaps that others are not able to get to provide. We're also able to provide counseling for those who need counseling or whatever they need. Our program is designed to just do this. So you're going to help us, especially with people in the Apex and Marshall area who are crying in need of help. Some even to the homeless. We care about people. That's why we're getting ready to build 60 units, 40 units over here, and we're going to do another 60 units for senior citizens because we care about people. We're also preparing ourselves to do a daycare. We're saying to our young people, if you can't afford expensive daycare services and others, that you can come to White Oak at least for half the amount or for a third of the amount or whatever. But we're trying to provide and look out for the total community. I want to say thank you for you volunteering with us. Thank you for all the help that you give us all the time, especially that you gave us during the Christmas when we were able to make sure that everybody have a Christmas, Thanksgiving, when we can make sure that everybody got some turkey on their plate if they so desire. I just want to say thank you, and we're going to continue to make it even better for our citizens. Thank you again, Crosspointe. We love you. We're praying the Lord will continue to bless you and keep you. You pray for us. We all have the same mission. That is to serve our God. Thank you.
Then lastly, on top of what we contribute in our operating budget, we contributed an additional $15,000 to Habitat of Wake County. Now, if you've been around Crosspointe the past several years, you've certainly heard our hearts in trying to address the problem of affordable housing in our area. From the beginning of the pandemic till today, the number of requests we get for rental and housing assistance on a weekly basis has gone through the roof. And while we at Crosspointe try to meet as many of those needs as we can, we know we have to figure out ways to address the problem at a more systematic level. And Habitat is a leader in that effort. Additionally, we were honored when Habitat asked us to take the lead on an interfaith build of a new home this spring. Understandably, they're very cautious about letting a church rooted in the Christian tradition work alongside other faith traditions like Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists, where they might get treated like an evangelical project or not as equal in the eyes of God. But as we've built trust with them, they've invited us to take the lead on an interfaith project, and I couldn't be prouder of how all of you who have worked on projects through the years have carried yourselves to earn that trust. Still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to address the systematic problems that exist. And so we wanted to invest more in those efforts. And so I'm pleased for you to hear from a leader at Habitat Wake, Rick Beach.
Hello, Crosspointe. I am Rick Beach with Habitat for Humanity of Wake County. Habitat Wake is honored to be part of your 25th anniversary celebration. Congratulations for 25 years of impactful ministry. We love what God is doing at Crosspointe. The more closely we get to know you, the more impressed we are. We love your values, which match very closely with ours. Habitat's vision is a world where everyone, all of God's children, if you will, have a good, affordable place to call home. Our mission is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. I'm with you today to announce a historic partnership between Crosspointe and Habitat Wake. On your 25th anniversary, you continue your powerful tradition of looking outward, not inward. You also continue your wonderful history of innovation and tearing down barriers for the sake of love. So we are thrilled to announce that Crosspointe is Habitat Wake's first ever faith advocacy sponsor. Over this fiscal year, your generous support will take Habitat Wake's advocacy efforts with the faith community to the next level. Specifically, you will be helping more people of faith to become trained advocacy ambassadors, working for policy changes to increase access to good, affordable housing. You will enable Habitat Wake to offer more race and housing dialogues, learning how racist housing policies of the past have created current housing inequality, then equipping people of faith to work for housing equity. We are also thrilled to announce that Crosspointe will be the lead sponsor of the next Interfaith Build. bringing various traditions together to learn about one another and love one another while building a home with a family in need of affordable housing. Also this fiscal year, Crosspointe will sponsor a home preservation project to help a homeowner to repair their home and stay there with dignity and hope. With the rapid loss of affordable housing units in our area, we must preserve as many affordable housing units as possible. With the lack of affordable housing at crisis levels locally, Crosspointe's efforts to build, preserve, and advocate for affordable housing could not be timelier. Affordable housing is perhaps the major issue our community is facing. Let me close with a brief theological reflection. Jesus spoke about the kingdom of God more than anything else. Jesus taught us that in God's kingdom, the poor receive good news, and those who are captive to the negative forces of this world are set free. I can confidently say that when you build, preserve, and advocate for affordable housing, you are building the kingdom of God. When you pick up a hammer and work beside people of different faith traditions to build relationships, you are building the kingdom of God. When you learn how bad housing policy has kept us apart and work together to create new policies which build racial equity, you are building the kingdom of God. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you are also building the beloved community, a community of justice, equal opportunity, and love for all. When the poor have access to capital, when all vestiges of racial redlining and deed restrictions are eliminated, when people of color have full access to all housing programs, you are building a beloved community. When we attend town hall meetings and say yes to affordable housing in our communities, when we vote for candidates that have affordable housing plans, the kingdom of God is at hand. So Crosspointe, happy anniversary and happy kingdom building. May God, the author of the beloved community, strengthen and guide you. Your efforts will allow many people to come home to good, affordable housing for the very first time. Thank you.
So those are the 5 organizations. And I sincerely can't think of a better way to honor the heart of our community after 25 years than to give a huge chunk of money away, to just be generous and to encourage and breathe life into these other organizations and find a way to partner with them. Now, for those of you who like to track numbers, you may have noticed that those 5 amounts actually add up to $99,000, not $100,000. So that leaves $1,000 left. So from the very beginning of these conversations, it was very important to us to find a way to honor the 3 families who started Crosspointe. This community wouldn't exist today unless they had the courage to start it 25 years ago. And so this past week, the 3 families who now live in 3 different states across the country, we delivered custom gift boxes to. Each were filled with items that are locally sourced from this area, most specifically from Cary, along with a marble and a wood serving board. I wrote them a letter of gratitude on behalf of all of us, recounting our story together, and it was designed and packaged by a local artist and Crosspointer who carried a theme of a map and a journey throughout the design that acknowledged their journey from the Midwest to Cary 25 years ago, and that continues to ripple out across the world now. So, there you go. $100,000 given away, and now we're 25 years old. Crosspointe, I'm really proud of who we are, and I hope you are too. I hope you see this whole thing that we do as something we do together, something we link arms to live out together, whether you live in North Carolina or join online from somewhere around the world. And while this is something we say every week, if you're able, I do hope that you choose to fund it. Not because of guilt or that because you feel obligated by some fear or threat put in your head by some religious authority somewhere in your past, but because you believe that what we do together matters. that it makes a difference in your life and in other people's life, that it helps reframe and redefine what it means for a community of faith to show up and love in the world and carry a message that the love of God is freely and abundantly given and accessible to every single person, and that they are all invited to fully participate regardless of race, age, creed, physical abilities, marital or economic status, gender identity, or sexual orientation, and where, as necessary, we'll take sides when issues of human equality and justice are at stake, because we believe that absolutely everything in this life boils down to exactly what Jesus says it does, to love your neighbor as yourself. And that when we leverage our generosity together, we can make a far greater impact than any of us can make on our own. I'll close with this. I hear from church leaders from around the country, even around the world, on a fairly regular basis, who are inspired by who we are together as a community and what we stand for. A couple weeks ago, one of these leaders called me and said, "Does your congregation know how important they are to the future of the church? Do they realize the critical role they're playing in showing others what's possible in a new way forward?" And my response was like, no. I'm really confident they don't, because frankly, I don't. I mean, we're just trying to keep our head down and just do our little thing together. And he said, well, I think they should know, because there's a lot of us who are watching from afar, and the fact that Crosspointe exists, the fact that you all were able to transition from the church that you were to the church that you are today, and that you survived, and not only survived, but are thriving, it's an incredibly rare story. And we're just so thankful for all of you. The next week, completely unconnected to that earlier conversation, I received an email from a woman in Florida who works at a church, and she expressed how she felt incredibly isolated and was wrestling with whether to just throw in the towel altogether. And she discovered us online and shared our church's values and some of our services with trusted leaders and other churches across the country that she knew felt similar to her. And at the end of her letter, she wrote this line. She said, "The community you all seem to have is inspiring at Crosspointe, and something so many of us long for. Thank you for showing us that something better is possible. You've given us hope." So Crosspointe, thanks for being you. Thanks for showing up in all the ways, and by doing so, showing me, showing one another, showing all of us, even people we've never met before, that something better is possible. And here's to continuing to grow up and mature and learn a lot more new things in the years to come as we keep discovering what it means to follow Jesus by showing up for and loving people shockingly well. You're loved.
It's too far to walk alone. You can't do it on your own. It's like bare hands digging through stone. And if things go down much steeper hills, even money won't pay these bills. But time is sure to show that people gonna be okay. Storms never come to stay. They just show us how bad we need each other, how bad we need each other. And the trials of today, there are signs along the way that remind us how bad we need each other, how bad we need each other. Sometimes feels like I'm drifting a million miles from this planet. But what a shame it would be to look back on my life and realize that I've taken you and you for granted. People gonna be okay. Storms never come to stay. They just show us how bad we need each other, how bad we need each other. And the trials of today, there are signs No, you don't pick up what you just put down. People gonna be okay. Storms never come to stay. They just show us how bad we need each other. How bad we need each other. And the trials of today, they are signs along the way to remind us how bad we need each other. How bad we need each other. Our people gonna be okay. Storms never come to stay. They just show us how bad we need each other. How bad we need each other. And the trials of today, they are signs along the way to remind us how bad we need each other. How bad we need each other. And I need you more than I'll let it show. And you need me more than you know. We can walk one single mile alone. I need you so long. That was the one.
If you would like to know more or get connected to Crosspointe, go to crosspoint.org. If you're in need of care or assistance, go to crosspoint.org/care. And welcome home.